Okay, so you want to buy the world's largest superyacht. It's called Azzam. 590 feet long. For scale, that's longer than a football field and a half. It's owned by the former president of the UAE, and it cost about $600 million to build. Here's the thing nobody tells you about buying something like this: the purchase price is basically the entry fee. It's not the real cost of ownership. Not even close. Let's start with how it got built, because even that part is kind of insane. A German shipyard called Lürssen built it over roughly 4 years, using around 4,000 workers. 4,000 people. Building one boat. For comparison, that's more people than work at most entire car factories, all pointed at a single vessel for one very rich family. So say you've got the 600 million. You buy it. You sign the papers. It's yours. Now what? Now the real bill starts, and this is the part that actually matters, because the industry has this blunt little rule of thumb: expect to spend about 10% of what you paid for the yacht every single year, just to keep it running. Not once. Every year. Forever, for as long as you own it. On a $600 million yacht, that's $60 million a year. Some estimates push it even higher, closer to 90 or 100 million, depending on how much you actually use it. Sit with that for a second. $60 million a year, just for the privilege of the thing existing, whether you ever set foot on it or not. Where does that money actually go? Start with the crew. Azzam needs somewhere between 60 and 80 people working on it, full-time, year-round. Not for special occasions, every single day, whether the owner's aboard or not. That's a small company's worth of payroll, just to keep the lights on and the engines maintained. Then there's fuel. The tank holds around 1 million liters. A single fill-up, one trip to the pump, basically, can run $5 to $10 million. That's not the yacht's annual fuel bill. That's one tank. Then stack on insurance, dockage fees wherever it's parked, and routine maintenance. And every 5 years or so, the whole thing goes into dry dock for a full structural inspection, millions more, and the yacht's out of commission for weeks while it happens. So even in a good year, with nothing going wrong, owning the biggest yacht in the world costs more annually than most people will earn across their entire working life. And that's the good scenario. Here's where it gets genuinely ugly. In 2022, the world got a crash course in what happens to superyachts the moment politics catches up with them. After sanctions hit Russia over the war in Ukraine, governments started seizing yachts tied to wealthy Russian owners, actually seizing them, physically. One, called Dilbar, got frozen by German authorities and has basically sat there since. Another, called Amadea, worth more than $300 million, got raided in Fiji, an actual boarding operation, and eventually handed over to the United States. Here's the part almost nobody thinks about when they hear the government seized a yacht. Seizing it doesn't make the bills stop. Someone still has to pay the crew. Someone still has to pay for dockage, security, basic upkeep, or the vessel starts falling apart at the seams, literally. In some of these cases, crew members ended up stranded on frozen yachts for months. Living aboard. Waiting on wages that couldn't legally be paid while the ownership was tied up in court. Imagine that, working on a $300 million yacht, and not knowing if you're getting your next paycheck, because the actual owner is somewhere in a legal fight you have zero say in. A $200 million asset can turn into a straight-up liability overnight. Not because the yacht did anything wrong. Because ownership became a legal question mark. Azzam itself hasn't been seized. But it sits in exactly the same category as every yacht that has been an asset that costs tens of millions a year just to exist, with absolutely no guarantee that politics won't freeze the whole thing overnight, regardless of who's actually holding the title. So does owning the world's largest superyacht actually make sense? As a flex, sure, nothing else on earth says I have more money than I know what to do with, quite like a $600 million boat. As a financial asset? It's closer to a very slow, very expensive fire. It doesn't make you money. It doesn't even preserve your money. It just burns it, every single day, whether you're on board or a continent away. You're not just buying a boat. You're signing up to feed it tens of millions of dollars a year, indefinitely, for the honor of owning the biggest one and hoping the whole time that nothing outside your control decides to freeze it before you even get to enjoy it.